And welcome to this State of the Union, not State of the Union, State of Emissions Energy Crew live podcast. I don't know where you're tuning in from, but wherever you're tuning in from, I want to say thank you so much. For those that don't know, Energy Crew podcast is my podcast. It's one of these signs up here. What we do, we kind of bring in some great people to talk about everything from energy policies, such as one of the guests we're going to have on today, Ryan Walker with Shumaker Advisors. We talk about energy policy from the Energy Workforce Technology Council with Molly Dieterman, the president there, Leslie Shockey-Meyer. We have we talk about actual energy realities with CEOs of CNX Resources. We dive into entrepreneurship with Cody Spalding, and marketing with Bella with Midnight Marketing. We dive into a lot of mindset and entrepreneurial lessons learned among the journey. So, hey, if you want to, I'm done with the spiel, ad-libbing it. Head over and check out Energy Crew podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. And I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in this morning. If you are tuning in, chime in and say hello, say good morning. It is a Friday, and what are we doing? We are here to learn, connect, and to grow, and to shed some knowledge about a very to me, it is a very confusing subject because there's so much going on. And we hope the goal of today is to kind of clear the air, pun intended, on the issue, on kind of the background, what's going on in the emissions sphere, in the emissions realm. This morning, we have Ryan Walker with Shumaker Advisors talking to us what is happening up in D.C. on the federal level and what he's seeing in his wheelhouse and his connections. And then we got Gage talking. We have sorry about that. We're doing this live, so things happen like this. We have Gage McCoy with Qube Technologies, who has been living, breathing, and eating emissions for several years now, and he's very knowledgeable on the subject. So he's going to kind of talk about the operational side of things on how operators and how service-sides can actually reduce emissions and actually probably make a little profit outside of that too. Ryan Keys, co-founder of Triple Count Resources, has been the forefront of kind of shaping an industry's response to these new regulations and all that stuff. We're going to try to have him live from Mexico. So that's going to be exciting. And then last but not least, we have my brother from another mother from the West Coast, who's probably still sleeping right now, Mike Umbro, who is leading the charge on providing some energy realities to some poor energy policies that are out there and what it really means. So he's formed a group called Californians for Energy and Science, where it's a nonprofit group where their goal is to showcase the realities of what these poor energy policies are saying and what it actually means. So that means air quality studies. That means working with universities and trying to showcase the benefits of domestic oil production. So I'm excited about this today. And before we begin, I got to say that this is brought to you by 4 sponsors today. We have, I think 4. Yeah. So we have Qube Technologies with Gage McCoy. I want to say thank him. He's also a part of Crue Club, which is our operator producer networking events, which is our second sponsor, which we're going to show here a little bit. And then our third sponsor, obviously, is Shumaker Advisors. It's just been really great. We actually, I had the opportunity to kind of co-host an event where we brought in some great people and had some great discussions about what's happening right now about emissions. So it just makes sense to bring them back on. And I met a couple of Ryan's colleagues, buddies, co-workers, and great outfit, and it was very enjoyable. And then we have Exec Crew, which is an executive development program that we have, which is a kind of a holistic leadership approach. What started off as a loose network of executives and founders has evolved into an actual executive development program, which is something I'm extremely proud of and excited about. And we're going to show a kind of a commercial here. We've been working on that in a little bit. It's been a pretty impressive group so far, and it's just it's inspiring to be a part of it. And I think this mastermind program, this executive development program, takes a great holistic approach on leadership and actually a lot of self-reflection on kind of knowing yourself as a leader and how you can improve on the professional and personal side of things. And then again, there's Californians for Energy and Science. You can hear all about that from Mike when he gets on. He can probably plug that better. Also, he's sleeping now, so let's not waste some airtime. Wherever you're tuning in from, why don't you say good morning before we kick things off and we start the little advertisements going on. Where are you tuning in from? Let's see what's happening. Let's see what's if I can get some if it's feeding over to StreamYard right now. I know there's been some issues in the background. All right, we have Lord tuning in. We actually just did a podcast. So good morning from the Prince of the Powder River Base. Good morning, Lord. We him and I just actually wrapped up a podcast yesterday. We kind of dived into kind of, I think, fifth generation oil field, his background, his outlook, and what he's doing, trying to help people right there. And I'm over on LinkedIn, and I see Nathan Hammer tuned in, but I don't think it's popping up here. But anyway, wherever you're tuning in from, say hello, say good morning. That keeps me going. I want to make sure all the channels are there, where this is live on LinkedIn. This is live on YouTube under the Energy Crue podcast. This is live, I think, on X or Twitter, whatever it's called these days. I'm spilling coffee everywhere, but that's okay. We have Wendy McCarty say, good morning from the Barnett Shell. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in. And then we got Juan tuning in from Fort Worth, Texas. Love me some Fort Worth, Texas. Great place. Hope you're staying warm and dry up there. And just a little preface about this morning's conversation. There are a lot of smart people out there. And I think we kind of, Ryan Walker, Gage, Ryan, and Mike and I were discussing this. It's like, I can come into this having some knowledge about this subject and kind of having a conversation about this. However, what I know is basically from headlines, it's from conversations, it's just casual conversation. So I'm not really a guru when it comes to emissions. I really don't know what's happening when it comes to emissions. And I'm okay admitting that. And I think this is going to be helping people out there that may be in my boat, that may be in the energy space, the oil and gas space, who may not know what these emissions are, what they mean, how they can impact operations, and how they can impact your smooth operations and the bottom line. So I was going to do some research last night, but I decided to spend a quality evening with my wife and not do research and kind of come into this with not a lot of knowledge. And that's something that I'm proud to say I am happy to admit. I think a lot of people out there, this might benefit too. It's okay to admit what you don't know. And I'm coming in this very raw, where I don't know much, and I'm going to ask a lot of stupid questions, and that's okay, because as Gage told me before we went live, there are no stupid questions. I'm saying BS. All right, who we got here? We got Justin. Good morning from the North Texas OTA Environmental Solutions. Whoop! All right, there you go, Justin. Whoop back at you, buddy. Nathan, there you are. You tuning in? Okay, tuning in from our YouTube channel, which I appreciate. Apparently, 85% of people that watch the podcast on our YouTube channel, Just Energy Crue, are not subscribers. So I appreciate you head over there, subscribe. Nathan's leading the charge. Clayton Williamson, I-10 eastbound. Couldn't miss this topic and panel. Clayton Williamson, awesome gentleman with specialty with petroleum specialty rentals. He is a member of Exec Crue, the program. The program is closed off. Don't worry, we're launching a new one in July. Loving this group, loving the people in this group, and the vulnerability we all share as leaders and what we're trying to do to achieve our goals. All right. Ditto, no stupid questions. Okay, now he's dual screening it. Nathan, that's a lot of respect to you, buddy. I like that. All right. Cody, good morning from Okietown. Another entrepreneur we had on Energy Crue podcast who started his entrepreneurial journey during COVID, and just kind of it's just inspiring to see him kind of achieve kind of his vision board, where he's going and what he's doing up in Oklahoma. And hey, Cody, hope to see you when I'm in Oklahoma City next week. So we got a couple more minutes before we kick this off. I just want to kind of say that I've been extremely excited about what's happening over at the Connection Crew. We kind of came to a point with Q4. My wife and I were kind of talking, strategizing on what's the right way to move forward. And we decided to kind of, let's put a little TLC into our Crew Club operator, producer, networking events. And let's kind of level that up a little bit. So we started introducing these topic facilitators with so many great industry topics. And actually, we have Gage. We have two of the speakers here that were topic facilitator. One that was a top facilitator, and one that's going to be. So Gage McCoy kicked us off on this topic facilitator Crew Club discussion where he actually did an emissions discussion. We just had one this week with Drew Limbacher who came in and discussed mergers and acquisitions 2024. We have Cole Thompson coming up in Austin, a good buddy. He's listening, best buddy of mine, who's going to be talking about, building a wet sand plant, whatever that means. Going up to Oklahoma, talking about operational biggest chapter. So we are introducing great topics, and we have some great discussions. So if you're interested about learning more about joining the table, you can email info@connectioncrew.com. All right, let's see what we got. We have my beautiful wife. Good morning from our house. She is probably watching that with our cat Buddy, who is a liberal, which is not a big deal. You do you, but we found out that our cat is a registered liberal, which is all right, which is okay. We also have Snow White, who is a great Republican cat. So, all right, we're going to get this kicked off. We don't want to waste more. I think look, we're going to try to stick to the time, just out of respect for everyone out there. As you can see, we have Ryan Walker kicking us off, 9:15 and 9:40. We're going to go over the 30,000 foot view. We have, I think y'all can still hear me. We have Ryan Keeves coming right after that, 9:45 to 10. We have Gage stepping up, 10:15 to 10:40, and Mike Umbro closing us out, 10:45 to 11:20. So with that, I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. Get your big brain cap on. Put this on the background. Tell people about Energy Crew Podcast, the #1 podcast out there in this house. So let's get this kicked off. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please connect with our listeners out there. They are here to help. They're here to help educate, help guide you. They all have a lot of cool stuff happening, a lot of cool projects they're working on in this space. And I think as we enter into the space as an industry, as professionals, it's probably important to surround ourselves with people that know a little bit more than we do about subjects. That way we can all learn. It's this continuing loop of knowledge, which I dig, which I love, which is what Exec Crew is almost all about. It's getting there. So anyway, so let's get this down. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And let's hear for the first sponsor. I only have a couple commercials. I have just logos for Shumaker in California. I apologize, but I did do this for events. So let's get this kicked off. When we come back, we're bringing Ryan Walker up with Shumaker Advisors. And honestly connect with them. And if you want to, we'll take some questions if we have time at the end. So y'all, let's get this going. Actually, this is from Crue Club, which is our operator, producer, networking events. These events are invitational only, and this is the topic facilitators we're talking about. So let's get it going. And Ryan Walker, you'll be right up. Man, that went hard, Ryan. That was like a great beat. Wherever you're tuning in from at 9:14 a.m., you hear that, that's going to be a great, great, great energy from that crew. Everyone, I want to introduce a good buddy of mine who actually met through the power of LinkedIn and the love of energy. And I guess the love of energy policy, Ryan, but in our relationships, you're a little bit more committed. You're up in D.C. real quick. Look, we don't have that much time. If y'all want to connect with Ryan, please find him on LinkedIn. You can go over this, but also we also did an Energy Crew podcast. We did two, where we discussed kind of your life up in D.C. You can find out more about that. That's why we don't get too deep in your background. And we also did one with Mike Umbro, who's also going to be talking about this, about energy policy, and what we can do for energy policy. And Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you don't mind, why don't you just get this kicked off from kind of a guide us what you want to talk about, maybe a little background, maybe what you're learning right now and what we can do as an industry. So
yeah, no, JP, thank you. This is great. Great to be here again. Always, it's always good to be let in with rave music.
Right?
Yeah,
it's different. Fantastic. It's different.
But no, just real quickly on my background. So I came to Washington, D.C. Shortly after college. I spent about 14 years on Capitol Hill I was a chief of staff to a member of Congress, Congressman Bob Latta from the state of Ohio. He currently serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And after that, left to go in-house at BP, was there about 5 years at BP. And then during the pandemic, left and to start the DC operation for Shumaker Advisors. Shumaker Advisors were a bipartisan, bicameral government affairs firm. We're part of a larger law firm, Shumaker Lupin Kendrick law firm, a 100-year-old law firm that's headquartered in Toledo, Ohio. So the law firm has a lot of different service lines, but specifically has an energy and environment service line, where we help clients on the legal side, but also from Shumaker Advisors on our side, we're helping companies, organizations navigate kind of just the morass of the federal bureaucracy. Both myself, my partners here in DC, Jason Wieme and Chris Salemi, they have also spent time on the Hill and in Washington. I think we collectively have about 80 years of Washington D.C. experience between the three of us. So we're taking our clients up to meet with members of Congress, senior staff, going into the administration, into the White House and other places to advocate on our clients' behalf, both for legislation and on the regulatory side as well.
So real quick, again, I want to be respectful of time, and obviously I can just sit here. I know I get distracted. I'm like, oh, what is that like going on? Yeah. So let's stay on this. So pretty much, and correct me if I'm boiling this down a little bit too much. Pretty much, Shumaker Advisors and what you do up in DC, you provide a source of knowledge on what is happening on the federal level. That you provide a source of knowledge. Not only that, you if people want to get involved more, you provide a bridge, a connection, a channel, a segue, if you will, to decision makers, and you advocate and help companies when it comes to creating energy policy and shifting energy policy to stuff that kind of makes more sense. And is that kind of clarifying?
Yeah, absolutely. We utilize our experience, our subject matter expertise, and our networks on behalf of our clients to leverage those. To take them into members of Congress and the White House and other places so companies large and small, people often think, well, if somebody has a lobbyist, and I wear the Scarlet L, the lobbyist, that you have to be a huge company or spend lots of money. Right. And that's just not the case. We advocate for our clients effectively, companies large and small, frankly.
Yeah. No, and we talking about that partnership. We had that collaboration that we had. It was a very refreshing feeling, kind of having meeting Jason and Chris and all that stuff, and just the conversations. It was very refreshing. It was very inspiring. Kind of going around the table and hearing everyone's kind of perspectives on this. And you're here to help the industry when it comes to this emissions thing. So let's dive into that. Let's get that 60,000 foot view, Ryan, on what is happening on the federal level, and then, if you don't mind, keep us on track. Then I want to talk about, what does this mean for the viewers? What does this mean for the listeners out there, whether it's in California, Texas, Oklahoma, wherever we're tuning in from?
Yeah, I'll hit on some of the high notes, and maybe we can dig in a little bit. But look, in Washington, D.C., there's no shortage of energy issues that are being dealt with presently. Okay. It's not boring. It's actually quite lively. Actually, some news was made early this morning, being led up to it. So one of the first things, it's not about emissions, about climate, and about the oil and gas sector. The administration today has paused permitting for any new LNG export terminals in the United States.
Is this breaking news?
Well, this is it.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God, breaking news. This is breaking news. Ryan, go on.
So basically, what the White House and the administration have decided is that they want to pause the DOE permitting process for LNG export terminals in the U.S. to basically start looking and analyzing any of the downstream climate methane effects on LNG and the LNG export process.
So more studies.
More studies, yes, more studies, and basically this pauses the permitting process. They're saying for up to 15 months. So you have about 10 or 11 other projects or export terminal projects that are in process right now, which essentially pauses all of those. It could threaten their investments. It could threaten their long-term viability. So, but in addition to that, there's one of the main debates on this, or counterpoints to this, is it threatens our energy national security, because we're the largest exporter of LNG in the world. And in a time of great global instability, we're pausing this, even though it doesn't affect current operations or operations that are in construction that have already been permitted. These projects, as you know, and as everyone probably listening knows, these are projects that take 5+ years to engineer and get built and construct and everything like that, and to get off takers. So it's a big deal. And
what is causing this? I mean, listen, it seems like this LNG process, it seems like it's a huge process, and so now it's paused for additional studies, more studies. So the potential this thing could go into 15 months. Sounds like what our boy Umbro is dealing with out in West Coast.
It's this is a big deal. This is an election year effort by the administration to pause these, to send a message to some of their environmental and climate activists that they want to take a better look at climate impacts of LNG and LNG export terminals.
And so so real quick, you probably talked about this, but again, sum it back up. What is this the impact for America and then the industry? What do you see this kind of as a potential impact?
Well, I think for America, I think you look at national security, energy security. We're providing a significant amount of our LNG exports to Europe right now. And like I said, even though that won't affect current operations, it will affect the ability to get additional LNG export terminals online and in the pipeline for the future. So as you're looking at futures contracts, or you're looking at additional facilities coming online to handle the demand that's coming out of the field, the E&D process, that there could just be knock-on effects that develop after this. It's so new, it's so unclear as to what the actual implications are. I think those are yet to be seen.
Is that a great segue into the unclear implications are to the emissions conversation?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I said a lot's going on in the energy and environment space. Let me just give you kind of a few examples here. What is going on? So in December, the EPA came out with their methane rule for new and existing sources. That has significant implications for the oil and gas and the energy space. And then permitting reform. So there's still hope that we can get some kind of a grand bargain between Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill. Senator Manchin and Senator Barrasso are kind of leading that effort in the United States Senate. But there's a bit of a hangup where Democrats want additional pathways to ease transmission, the big interstate transmission lines, where Republicans are saying, look, we need judicial reform for the NEPA process. So we don't end up with endless litigation that ties these projects up for years and years. Additionally, Class 6 injection wells, Louisiana just got primacy granted to them from the EPA, but the EPA also just granted probably the first permits for Class 6 injection wells in, 5 or 10 years for 2 well sites in the state of Indiana for doing CCS operations.
Okay.
And then we have the 45V, the hydrogen tax credit, which was put out by the administration in November or December of last year as well. And this has huge implications because it essentially boxes out blue hydrogen, or hydrogen that's created from oil and gas sources, in favor of green hydrogen hydrogen that's created with electrolyzers and renewable energy.
Uh-huh.
And then one of the big things that's being discussed right now is actually in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court's looking at a case that will impact the issue of Chevron deference and whether courts should defer to, and how much they should defer to the regulatory agencies who've written the rules when deciding the legality of a case. And this could impact issues like the methane rule, like the power plant climate rule, the tailpipe emissions rule. So there is that's kind of a high level, of what's going on.
So let's obviously there's a lot going on. Let's talk about kind of this emissions, the talk about emissions. I know there was an EPA something potentially that was released. Listen, again, for those tuning in right now, I don't know much about this, which is cool, which is what I'm enjoying about this, which I'm fine with. So there's been like an emissions EPA thing. So that's kind of started this kind of like this push to understand emissions, what's going on. And then for the last, 10 minutes or a couple minutes, let's talk about the MIFA or the MENA, the thing that you're working on when it comes to emissions, if you don't mind. So MAFA. So what's going on in the federal level when it comes to kind of emissions and how that pertains to the oil and gas space? I know there's a lot going on. But let's what's going on with emissions? State of emissions.
So let's talk about the methane rule. So that has some implications. Let me just kind of I'll utilize my notes here so that I can get it all right.
100%, dude.
And the methane rule will require it's a phase-in requirement for eliminating routine flaring of natural gas that is produced from new oil wells. It's going to require comprehensive monitoring of methane leaks from well sites and compressor stations. You're going to establish standards that require reductions in emissions from high-emitting equipment like controllers, pumps, and storage tanks. It actually includes one of the really controversial programs. It includes a super emitter program that'll utilize third-party expertise and remote sensing to detect large methane leaks that they'll determine as super emitters.
So who decides the third party? You'll have to get certified by the EPA to be a monitor or someone who has authority to basically rat out emitters. This is the Singapore style.
Yeah, but it's unclear as to what those requirements will look like, and who will ultimately be. It's maybe somebody like the EDF and their satellites.
When is this clarity coming?
Well, it's the methane rule is final, and it will go into effect. I think it's either 60 or 120 days, something like that, since it's been published. So it's going to be it's going to happen, and then, but it could what could impact that is if the Supreme Court decides to overturn the Chevron deference, which then I think that opens the floodgates to the methane rule being overturned. It just depends on who what happens. Does it automatically? I'm not a lawyer, but does it automatically get rid of the methane rule? Does there have to be another piece of litigation to get rid of that methane rule? So it's all tied together.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we're not going to operate as an industry or as a country or whatever, or as business on hope, like this might happen, this could happen. So no. What can we control right now as a company, as an operator, as a service? What can we control as an industry versus hope? Is being overturned. What can we control?
Well, one of the things you mentioned, MAFA. So the organization that we're running for a group of our clients, it's called the Methane Abatement and Flare Abatement Alliance. And basically, it's oil and gas, oil field service companies that are looking to essentially mitigate, methane releases, to get rid of flaring. Because a lot of people think, the methane is the issue, but oil and gas providers, they're just venting or flaring, and they don't care, right? But we know, and we find out that it's the oil field service guys and the operators that don't want to do that because it's essentially lighting money on fire.
Yeah. That's a great thing that Ryan Keyes brought up. He's like, there's a way to make a profit off of this, fellas.
Yeah, 100% there is. And what we're doing is because a lot of the world globally, there's a lot of, whether it's the OGCI, the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, whether it's through the COP programs or different things, there's a lot of promises that are on paper. And what MAFA aims to do is our tagline is progress over promises. So we're looking through our clients' work to do studies and case studies that show what operators are doing to abate methane, to reduce flaring, and what are the environmental benefits of that? What are the health benefits of that? And then also what are the economic benefits of that?
So I love it sounds like kind of that's an industry theme. I mean, from the East Coast to the West Coast, because the education and the resources is very similar with Californians for Energy and Science is doing. It sounds like maybe it's not to the level where it has the federal impact that MAFA has, but it's still kind of it's great hearing kind of the push for progress.
Yeah, and this just isn't, and MAFA is just not U.S. This is a global effort.
You're global? Okay.
Yeah, we're looking to work with different national oil companies that our clients and our members are working with to showcase what they're doing. Because look, we know that the U.S. we have the most stringent and a lot of times the best environmental laws. Mm-hmm. And when you force the production overseas and you look at the production overseas, their flares there are much bigger than ours. Their venting is much more prevalent than we are here. So we're trying to take this globally and say, look, on a global scale, these are what operators are doing. This is what oil field service companies are doing, so that there's proof points, actual progress to show methane abatement and flare reduction. And
that's the thing, though. It's there's no, what does Chuck Yates say? There's no P zone in the pool. It's that's why there's such a push for energy realities. Let's talk about the actual energy realities. Where are we getting our calories? Where are we getting our calorie intake from? Is that organic? Is that organic and domestic, or are we shipping that in dirty diesel tankers that often have no environmental regulation? So hey, look. As we close up on this, Ryan, obviously you can stick around, brother, but I don't know what's happening in your day. I want to talk about real quick, because I understand MAFA. There's a lot going on with MAFA. Okay. There's a lot going on with Shumaker Advisors. Okay. But you are a resource for not just knowledge, but also to help out. So number one, why should I, as whether it's a service or an operator or something like that, learn more about MAFA? Just learn. Here's the deal. Not push it on that, but why should I learn more about what it is? What would be the benefit of kind of talking to you about this and all that stuff, and how would I learn more about MAFA? So why, what's the what, and how?
Why? It shows that you're part of the solution, that you want actual progress over promises that are on paper and haven't been executed on.
Okay.
And what was the next one?
The next one was what? So why the benefits?
The benefits. Look, so what we're doing we're running this this coalition, and what we're doing is we're going to be putting out a monthly newsletter about the activities that we're doing in Washington D.C. and globally.
Okay.
And then we're going to be holding an annual fly-in for executives to come to Washington, D.C.
That's gonna be cool.
For a day or two. And so we can take them up on Capitol Hill to meet with members of Congress, to meet with senior staff, to meet with members of the administration, to talk about the progress that they're making awesome. on methane reduction and flare abatement.
Let's get this. How can people contact you, and how can people learn more? Then I want to open up the last 3 minutes to any questions that may be out there, and then we got to cut it off. So
yeah. No, I could look. I'm in politics. I could talk all day. So look, people can contact me through LinkedIn. You can contact me through email. It's rwalker@shumakeradvisors.com. But look, real quick, and kind of before we go to the questions, I'll just say, look, people think, like I said, that you have to be big, or you have to be at the Exxons or the Chevrons of the world to have lobbyists and things like that. That's not the case. We help out companies and organizations of all sizes to leverage our experience and our expertise on behalf of our clients, to advocate for them, to change the laws, to make positive change or prevent something bad from happening. And look, I always tell people, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yeah, I like that. But you know what's interesting too? I mean, this is kind of a personal observation. There was a lot of people that I didn't realize that you were already connected with, that are in my circles, that I view as like leaders in this industry, that kind of want to push the industry to that are pretty motivational. And the fact that you're already tied up with those people, that kind of that speaks on y'all's reputation, what you're trying to do. So I dig that, and I thank you. Hey, we got some comments, buddy. Hey, we got to keep true to the schedule. We got about 4 minutes for comments. We have Nathan tune in. Nathan, what is going on, my boy from Oklahoma? At what point will we see no more bottlenecking and regulation production in the USA, and instead hold other countries accountable to some of the same standards we have? The U.S. EPA. Oof. Ooh.
It's a loaded question a bit, but given that we are in a presidential election year, I'll just say elections have consequences. And when you're going to the ballot box and you're talking to your policymakers, understand that who you vote for ultimately will have consequences based upon the types of policies that they're supporting. So, politics is in everything. It's in energy. It's in manufacturing. It's pervasive, right? And you have to get rid of that bottlenecking and the regulation that Nathan, that you're talking about. You have to be involved in the process. You have to be involved in the political part of it as well. But I think you have certain types of leaders that want to clear the decks on the bottlenecking and the regulation, and basically so that they can unleash American energy around the world. Well, I can't hear you, JP.
What is Toby Rice's? Is that unleash U.S. LNG up with EQT? Isn't that something like unleash the power?
Yeah, and right now, look, it just showed by what we talked about earlier, talking about LNG. We're now at a standstill with that.
That's great, especially when energy is taking such a limelight. So Nathan, that was a great question. How do we make politics more efficient? Man, we can answer that in 4 minutes on Energy Crue podcast. I don't think you will though. Does anyone else have any questions out there for Ryan? If not, we can. I'm going to sit around a little bit, talk a little bit. So, what you got? Anything? How are you, Ryan? How's everything?
Doing great. Looking to come down. I'm looking forward to coming down for the NAPE Expo.
Oh yeah, I'll see you here. Umbro's going to be in town. A lot of people.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I've not been to NAPE before, so I'm excited.
We got that coming on. You're going to be coming as a topic facilitator at a Crue Club event, which I'm pumped about. Man, I'm looking forward to tagging up. And also, we got to get up to DC to spend time.
Yeah. And speaking of that, my former boss, who I said, Congressman Bob Latta, he has announced that he's running for the energy to chair the energy subcommittee. And actually he may be visiting Houston soon. So,
we welcome with open arms. We'd love to meet him. So, hey, if anyone out there does not have anything with Ryan, feel free to stick around, brother. You know that if you want to feel some at the end. But hey, if you got to cut out, I always appreciate your time. I always appreciate talking to you, and thank you so much for kind of what you do and dealing with what a lot of people. It's kind of it's intimidating, like lobbyists, DC. Policy, but it's so important. And I think I just appreciate kind of what you're doing. I appreciate our friendship and kind of how we got connected and our love for energy policy. Okay. Sorry. Hey, this might be something we have to come at the end. How about an update on geothermal Washington? We were coming at the end, Juan. That is a great question. Appreciate that. That might be a sidebar, or Juan, just hold on to that at the end, or Ryan, if you want to contact him, or maybe we can kind of wrap this up, or maybe have Umbro because he's dealing with geothermal. I don't know.
Yeah. And Juan, I think that's a great question. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or whatever. I'm happy to give you something on that. But there's a lot going on, and I think you'll hear more from Mike Umbro about this, and there's other companies like Sage Geosystems and other things that are heavily involved in the geothermal space.
It's exciting stuff. So, Ron, I want to thank you for your time. I'm trying to stay true to schedule. Juan, you can contact him or stick around, and we can always answer those questions. Ryan, we'll talk to you in a little bit. And thank you so much for your time. Oh, man, I cut him out early. Sorry, Ryan. All right, so everyone, next up, we have a great, brilliant mind here to help change the world, change the industry for better. These things in an innovative, outside the box type of way. It's going to be Ryan Keys, the co-founder of Triple Crown Resources, who's also very passionate about the environment and very passionate about solutions, identifying touch points or pain points in our industry and how we can fix those. But not only that, how we can make some money fixing that. And at the end of the day, I think if you tie that along with whatever, it's going to motivate people a little bit more. But anyway, so Ryan Keys is about to be up. But before we do, we're going to take a little thank you to our sponsor happening right here. All right. That is another banger to wake you up at 9:42 Central this morning. And we are going to be going global right now as we bring Ryan. You there? Oh, we got him. Ryan Keys is here in the house. Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm sitting in a car, my rental car in Mexico. I'm in Sonora. I have no notes. I have no agenda, so we're just gonna riff.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to riff. And actually, Energy Crew flew Ryan down to Mexico, got him a car to have him on location for this very special live Energy Crew state of emissions. Isn't that right, Ryan?
That's right. None of that was made up at all. Absolutely none of it.
Hey, Ryan, first off, I appreciate you taking time out of your Friday morning, wherever you are in this world. I love hearing about your trips and your visits and your impact that you have to different communities throughout kind of the world. It's always great catching up with you and all that. And one of these things, obviously, the point of today is you. There's so much. You've been on the forefront of kind of building an industry, knowledge collective, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, which I'm hoping you showcase a little bit more about. But I remember you came on Energy Crew podcast like when I first was like 2 years ago, something like that. Like, and you were talking about, you're like, hey, this is coming. Like these emissions rules are coming, like whether you like it or not. And here we are 2 years later. It just keeps on approaching. It keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger and kind of taking more space at the table. And I think, back then you were like, you made this great correlation, and it's public. When I say it's public, it's on Energy Crew podcast, the #1 podcast in this house, that you said, hey, look, there's a way to fix this. And not only that, there's a way to be good stewards and to actually turn that into cash, to hit the bottom line. And you had this great example about, if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, might be taking some of your ammo, but you're like, hey, look, we have an issue. We potentially might have an issue. Let's figure out what that is. You did a couple flybys, figured it out, and you kind of ran the numbers. You say, hey, look, if we fix this issue, it pays for itself. And in 4 days, 5 days, not only that, it actually helps the bottom line. So let's be good stewards, and also makes us good business people as well. Is that a kind of a 30,000 foot view?
Yeah, exactly. It's like everyone wins, no one loses situation. Yeah, those are cool things to find, because there's just no reason to not do that thing. And of course, this all happens in a gray area. There's no absolute, like, playing in that gray area is where cool things happen. So we don't want to be spending, millions and millions of dollars on things that'll capture an extra 2 molecules of methane. Right. That's stupid. And also, like, it's a net negative, because like the internalized carbon intensity of the thing or the process you're using to capture it ends up being a negative. So, but things that are very, very profitable are also going to be really good kind of carbon on carbon return, where the carbon sunk in the process or the capex or whatever. You're spending 1 unit to capture 100 units or something. So it ends up being a big carbon sink as well as profitable, and those things go hand in hand together. Usually when you have one, you have the other.
Okay.
So not only is it profitable, but I mean this is the dollars spent per metric ton CO2 equivalent reduced is orders of magnitude lower than like a new wind farm. And not to say we don't need wind farms, but like this is really impactful stuff. 2 orders of magnitude, some of these things. So in other words, you sink $1, you abate 100 times the carbon. I think I remember that episode. Was that the infamous shorts episode?
That was when we had two dudes with short shorts. 100%.
Yeah. You showed up with JP. I thought I didn't think we were going to be on video, but we were on video, and my shorts weren't that short.
No, but you know what? It was. We were fresh out of. It was the summer of short shorts. I think
that was the summer of shorts. There was actually average length shorts.
So when you're sitting down with that camera angle, they're short shorts.
You just have a terrible camera angle, man. We got to work on that.
So I can't imagine someone tuning in right now be like, State of Emissions talking about short shorts. What the hell is going on? But hey, you've been kind of, feel free to speak to as much as you can on stuff, but you've been kind of helping, leading, gathering, trying to get this knowledge together, trying to share knowledge with fellow operators about these regulations that are coming out, these emissions coming out. Not only that, you're there to kind of potentially share knowledge on this is how you operate and this is how you spend your dollars to make, tenfold or whatever you're just talking about. So can you give us kind of like where you're at, what you were doing and where you're at right now, and as it pertains to service companies or operators out there?
Yeah, I'm a member of a few groups and did a little thing with the National Petroleum Council, trying to get this out there, especially for smaller operators that don't have a team that has some bigger majors have actual presence in Washington. I mean, we just spoke to a gentleman who described himself as a guy with a scarlet letter. I think he does it. That connotation is unfair. No, it was self-deprecating, but I mean that's important. So getting that kind of on the ground knowledge of what's happening in Washington with regulation. Small operators don't have the ability to go do that. So we're relying on secondhand or people advocacy. People for education and to advocate on their behalf in Washington. So it's my role. I'm not a policy expert.
Right.
My role in all of this is listen to all these smart people who are understanding these rules. The initial rule, preliminary was about 1,500 pages. I don't read that. I'm not going to go read that. I'm going to listen to the very intelligent people who are reading that and interpreting it and saying, okay, here's what the intention is. And then I'm sitting here like, okay, how do I mesh that with our operations? Like, what's the best, most cost-effective way to do that and mesh operations? So, the biggest one, the most prevalent is the methane tax. They call the waste emissions charge. That's 2024 is going to be the first year for that. That's going to be assessed in 2025 on your 2024 emissions. So this is 1 year away. I mean, things you're doing now or not doing will affect that charge that operators will be assessed next year.
So this is one of those things, bro. This is one of those things where it's like, hey, this isn't like coming down. We got to start looking at this. Is like this is something you should be operating or adhering to right now, because whether you like it or not, it's on your plate.
True. Yes, okay. Absolutely. And
okay.
There's this there are 2 rules, and they don't work really well together. EPA has the Quad OB, which is it's not it doesn't concern quantification as much. It's more about what monitoring fugitive emissions and so forth. This fee is assessed through something called Subpart W. These are both EPA. These should be my biggest complaint, and these are probably like there's some things I like about it, things I don't like about it. Probably my biggest complaint about these two new rules is that they don't sync up with each other really well. EPA had a great opportunity to make them consistent and sort of play off one another, where there are situations where you're trying to comply with Quado B, it actually interferes with your ability to lower your reported emissions through Subpart W. And lowering your emissions through Subpart W, some things that you actually want to do to abate those might conflict with some of your initiatives for Quado B and C. So that's the biggest one. That's and a lot of these things are still being understood. They're interpretations. I mean, these are going to be the rule of the land, and from where my perspective of this, I think Ryan Walker, mentioned this in his piece, 20 minutes ago. This is pretty sticky. This is not something that can necessarily be reversed with a change of administration. So,
elections have consequences.
Hope not really a strategy here. If that's not going to be like that's not necessarily going to end this.
Right.
There's going to be a lengthy, drawn out process with a lot of talking heads, a lot of court decisions and so on and so forth. If it is reversed, the good news is that with an understanding of it, you climb that, which is difficult to do. This isn't that bad for most operators. The operators who are going to be most affected by this are going to be the smallest of the small operators, at least Quado B and C. Most like a shale operator, a lot of this stuff is actually profitable. They're telling you to go do something that's, well, I want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Ryan Walker mentioned it. We don't want a flare. I mean, it's money. It's value. Even with natural gas where it is, in the Permian, we have natural gas liquids. Propane is at a decent price. Butane, natural gasoline. These are still valuable hydrocarbons. Where even if the methane isn't worth a whole lot, the natural gas liquids are. So it's still very valuable to capture and prevent those from happening. Sometimes they happen though, with flares. Sometimes they happen. I mean, we just had one. First let me circle back to the smaller operators. There is, for this fee, there is a carbon metric tons of CO2 equivalent level, 25,000 metric tons CO2 equivalent of emissions level. It's a reporting threshold. So a very, very small operator is going to be exempted, de facto exempted, does not have to report through Subpart W. So will not be assessed that fee. The confusion is, well, how do I know if I need to report? Like how do I do that? There's no straightforward answer there. You kind of have to go through the exercise. You don't have to report it, but yet you got to go through the exercise. If you're a stripper well operator with 50 marginal wells or something, and your aggregate total production is say 300 or 400 BOE a day, you're probably under that 25,000 metric tons.
Okay, so pretty much from our conversations, talking to you, it's like, hey, look, JP, this isn't like a lot of these companies, they might have an HSC department or an environmental department that are historically kind of oversee these regulations and oversee the stuff. However, I had a lot of buddies attend your when you had these little symposiums or these little chats, whenever you had these events, they were going to them, and these strictly operations focused, they went and they were saying they were telling, first off, it was excellent feedback, Ryan, towards kind of what you're putting together, but they were saying this isn't something that like this is something that we all need to be on board with because it's affecting us all, and it's a big deal. And to the point where it was kind of cool. Scotty, the guy that went, he's like, this is, I got really pissed off that not more people were here. And it was just so great hearing that kind of feedback. So this isn't something that you just kind of kick down the hallway. to a different department. This
Yep.
is not something as a leader of an energy producing company. It doesn't matter your size. You need to have some knowledge, some education, some verbiage, and understanding around these emissions rules that are rolling down. So, if you
can be massive value add here. Yeah,
so,
this needs to be operations led. Absolutely,
bro. I'm all about that VAA, the value added activities, buddy. You know that. All right. So real quick, it's 2024. All right. This is happening right now, even if you don't know about it right now. All right. Ryan, you're the ghost of Christmas past. You're coming to me Christmas time. Okay. All right. I get this fine. I get this reporting requirement. What are you telling me as an operator? What are you showing me as an operator that I probably could have jumped on sooner, that I probably should know? What was that first step of that low hanging fruit as an operator? Number one, understand what's happening, but number two, to do something about it.
Yeah, just to figure out where you are. And the best way to do that is that there are a lot of good consultants out there. I'll just Google, EPA subpart W cheat sheet or EPA Quado B cheat sheet. That'll tell you where you can, about where you are. That's a good primer on the where you are as an operator. They'll kind of go into, okay, if you're a shale operator with you reasonably good volumes, you got high rate wells, here's this kind of stuff you need to do. Long story short, for Triple Crown's perspective, we're active drilling complete new horizontal wells. We have our average throughput through our horizontal wells is pretty high. Our average throughput through our batteries is pretty high. That makes our activities our best spend, risk reward. Would love to spend the least amount of money to capture the most gas as possible and prevent those, any flaring. So I can, number one, get paid on that gas. So I get the revenue to offset those costs and then actually create a return on that, but also mitigate my risk with respect to the Quado B and subpart W regulation. Up until now, it's really been that cash on cash. We've been looking at it as just like if I'm leaking 50 MCF a day, that's terrible. Shouldn't be doing that, but geez, let's go capture it. It costs a few $1,000s to go fix. That project pays just like a workover, right?
Yeah.
That project pays out and
we got the Wi-Fi max go down. Okay, you're back.
I cut out there for a sec. Can you hear me?
Elon Musk, he's like, we gotta Starlink this. Let's keep this going. Let's keep the convo going.
Hey, let me
this is great. We're doing this live. Now I'm about to freak out. Wait, what do you want me to do? You want to come back? You want to come back? You want to wrap it up? Wait, hold on. Do you want to wrap it up? Okay, well, he's coming back. This is what happens live, okay? So I hope everyone out there is kind of getting some great information and intel after this. Gage, if you're listening, you are next up on the hot seat, on the Energy Crew hot seat. But again, for those that aren't following Energy Crew podcast, we hope that you head over to Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. I got to plug that. If you're interested in some great industry insights, and check out Crue Club, which is our operator producer network and events. Gage, we're about to go on. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. If not, I'm going to keep on shooting from the hip here. Okay. All right. So next up, I'm going to bring, if anyone has any questions. All right. So Ryan, I love The Office. Looks like mine. I dig that. All right. So next up, we're going to have old Gage, the Guru McCoy, come up with Qube Technologies. And I'm trying to multitask right now, but I'm trying to talk and trying to find how to show the video, because they have a pretty cool video. So share a screen. There we go. All right. We're bringing this up all the way up. Boom, 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 boom.
Introducing the Emissions Dashboard by Qube Technologies, the leader for low-cost continuous emissions monitoring. The Qube Emissions Dashboard is the new system of record for your continuously managed emissions program. It provides complete live and historical data around quantified emissions and environmental conditions for all your monitored sites. The emissions dashboard delivers real-time access to uninterrupted emissions data, so you can better manage, reduce, and report on your emissions reduction performance. Learn more about Qube's emissions dashboard at www.qubeiot.com.
Oh, Gage, love you, brother. Love you, brother. But I'm going to take you on, but I'm going to take you off because Ryan Keys is back on. So we got 10 more minutes with him, buddy. Hey, that was a nice intro. That was a nice. Hey, this is a sneak peek. This is a sneak peek.
I need a better walkout song.
Okay, we'll get
like
you some
Ryan
Rob
Walker,
Zombie or
yeah.
something. Be right back. All right.
All right.
Ryan,
Yeah.
so we got you, Ryan.
Yeah.
And we're live again. So, hey, let's all right. Let's keep. So, the first step is downloading that report and understanding where you're at, understanding your base point, getting that first thing of blood work back, and understanding your levels. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And for most operators out there, you're already pretty, whether you know it or not, if you're at a reasonably sized company, a mid-sized company, something like that, you're probably already doing a pretty good job. Just through the idea of best practices in terms of tank battery design, things like that. And this awareness of, maybe I can look into things to prevent some, mitigate some flaring. Things of that nature. So yeah, that's the first step. And then the next step is probably to go measure, figure out where you are. Lots of detection out there reasonably at a reasonable cost. And then a lot of folks to talk to. It's a pretty, market moves fast. It's pretty incredible. We've identified this need and the market is really coalescing around the ability to deliver everything an operator needs to do to be successful. It's going to evolve even more. And our goal is to get the cost for compliance down so low that this actually becomes a profitable activity for everyone, even before you start preventing, adding in the fees that you're avoiding through the activities.
Is this kind of a safe assumption to say, if you are a smaller operator, if you're a smaller independent operator, it probably again, frame this the right way, I guess, without saying, it's like, if you are going to survive, not just survive, but also thrive in this new environment, it's probably better to start diving into this subject, even though it's a sticky subject, even though there's just so much out there, nothing really final on stuff. It probably makes sense to start diving into this, understanding this as a smaller operator, spending some time, energy, and effort on something like this. And let me ask you a question, Ryan. These ideas, all this stuff, like, I know obviously, it's business is competitive. However, this type of information, conversations when it comes to emissions and kind of operational tips and tricks to increase your revenue, this type of information, this should be shared amongst the industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a few resources to go do that, but yeah, this does that's the reason I volunteered to do this NPC thing. I mean, it was unpaid, but it was just sort of like hey, here's something I can do, and the rest of the Triple Crown team help a lot too.
It's so awesome.
Just to help out the industry, and we don't, there's no compensation for it at all. It's just like, hey, this is an industry we care about. Here's something we can do to help ourselves out. And in the meantime, let's just document that and share that with as many people as we can. Part of the interesting quantification here in our subpart W, let me tell this story. This is very recent. So our subpart W in 2022, based on all the guidelines, we follow the letter and the spirit of the law through all that. That's the last one that you can actually go look up. This is public data. 0.15% methane intensity. So so it's 15/100%.
Okay.
That's how much gas we were leaking. So of our total throughput. Okay. There was a little update. Of that 0.15%, most of it, 75% of that 0.1, let's just call it 15. So 15/100%. 75% of that was from our pneumatic controllers. These things at well sites, the tank batteries, use pressure to actuate and do work. Okay. So we always thought that was a little funny because it's what we're actually seeing is that is a tiny amount based on what we're measuring, and our biggest volumes are super emitters. Subpart W is now being amended, sort of, to capture some of those super emitters. 2023, this caught us by surprise. Because we did not see any leaks from our technology coming from those pneumatic controllers. We have this thing called an abatement curve, where we decided our best ROI, best economics of, well, we don't want to spend anything on our pneumatic controllers since they're not leaking. They just have this emissions factor. It's a spreadsheet that the EPA tells you, okay, you have this equipment, this is how much it's leaking, whether that's leaking that or not. It's just sort of this edict. So they updated that emissions factor in 2023. This caught us by surprise. Shame on us. Our subpart W methane intensity, as reported, and this will be public data here in actually be several months. It'll be during this calendar year. It's going to jump up to 0.44%. So our methane intensity rose 300%, 3x. We didn't do anything different. They just updated the emissions factor.
Oh,
that is now above the threshold for assessing that fee. So the fee is 0.21% or 0.2%. We're now twice that, and now we're theoretically in jeopardy of paying that fee, that waste emissions charge. That's 2023. What's interesting about the new subpart W is you get to use measurement now on some of these things. So a lot of people were just switching their pneumatic controllers out because it solved on kind of an artificial problem.
okay.
And the government mandated emissions factor, where the government's telling you this is how much your equipment is leaking. And it'll still be there. That emissions factor will still be there. If you don't take direct measurements of these things, that's what you're going to have to use. What we're going to do is measure directly. So we don't, the retrofit on these pneumatic controllers is extremely expensive. For small operators, it's millions of dollars for us.
Right.
And it's a couple of percentage of our capital budget, 2024 capital budget. So we're going to measure now. This is a lot of these costs we're sinking anyway to comply with Quad OB, the other regulation, and also so that we know where we are. We're already monitoring a lot of this stuff. So we want to use that measurement instead of the emissions factors. So in 2024, this is a scary number. The 0.44 in 2023, 2024 regulation, new regulation, it's going to drop to 0.04. So of that 0.44% in 2023, 91% of those emissions, the vast majority of those emissions are artificial, are these emissions factors. So when that goes away, we're going to drop in 2024 down to about 0.04%. So well below, way out of any sort of risk. That'll be, one of the best emissions factors in the Permian Basin.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not emissions factors, methane intensities. So this is really confusing for people. 2022, we start 0.14, then we jump up to 0.44 in 2023, and now to 0.04 in 2024. We're not doing anything different. This is just regulation changing, and it's frustrating.
So again, going to what you can't control, it's kind of like you need to understand the problem versus you just start throwing cash at the problem.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Hey, Ryan,
a lot of folks out there to help you with this.
Hey, we're getting done, buddy. We're 10:09. We're 10:09. I don't want to accept. I got to keep this live, man. Just like it's a news channel. It's state of emissions right now. What do you want to wrap us up with, buddy? What can you?
We just experienced it in the Permian Basin. I mentioned this at our dinner a couple of days ago. Winterization, Texas, we're really bad at that because it doesn't get as cold as other parts. Canada does this really well because they have to. Survive. Yeah. Bakken does this because they have to. DJ Basin, Wyoming, they do this because they have to. Yes, it costs money. It costs money to winterize. In the middle of this, we were shut in for 3 days, and our wells, we were 90% curtailed. these events, this seems to happen every year. 2021 was a really bad one. Happened in 22. Happened last year. Happened this year. And maybe it's just for a few days. We were down. We were highly curtailed for about a week.
Okay.
Because of lack of winterization. This is one of those things that every part of the supply chain has to be winterized. Otherwise, if you are, it doesn't really matter. We could flow. Our 90% of our production could have gotten to market. In the meantime, all these wells and most of our flaring is from this unplanned downtime, these weather events. Say about as much is from these few days every year of unplanned weather events, flaring during these periods, as all the other stuff combined. I mean, it's crazy. This is pretty low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yes, it costs money, and
it also costs communication. Working together as an industry, as an energy industry, upstream, midstream, downstream. Yes.
You see spot price the day before the weather event for Waha gas. It's nothing. It's depressing. It's always that way. It's terrible. I hope this gets better. Less than $1. The first major day of the freeze. Then the Waha spot price $25 an M. $25.
Shut it down.
How much winterization is that going to pay for?
Exactly, I know.
And it's not that expensive.
It's low hanging fruit, not that expensive. Helps the environment and makes and as a business, at the end of the day, it helps the bottom line.
Yep, but we all have to do it. Every part of the supply chain, us, our gatherer, long haul pipelines, downstream liquefy, everything has to winterize.
How do you eat an elephant?
This is what's hard.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I love it. Thank you for this. And hey, buddy, be safe. Thank you so much for your time. I always value kind of your insight, our friendship, and kind of what you're doing for the industry and just who you are as a person, man. Enjoy your time. Be safe. And man, I just appreciate it. If anyone needs, just wants to kind of contact Ryan and kind of maybe learn more, kind of maybe just, hey, look, where do I start from here? As an operator, I'm a small operator, or we're about to get, or kind of based on our Crew Club conversation, hey, look, we are about to start operating as a team. We've been focused on this so much. What do we need to learn about now before we start operating? They can contact you correctly, just kind of find out where to get some more information or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I usually don't look, but after a solicitation like this, I'll over the next couple of weeks, I'll be looking out for anyone who needs some pointers.
I appreciate that. And if those want to contact me, you have to subscribe to Energy Crew. Then I'll forward the email over to Ryan. But hey, Ryan, buddy, be safe, man. Stay safe, and I'm looking forward to tagging me getting back, brother.
All right.
Adios, amigo.
Adios.
Well, you heard that. That was our correspondent in Mexico, Ryan Keys, talking about what's going on right now. I'm excited to bring out Gage McCoy, but as he requests, we're going to have to do some intro music to him because we're having two bangers, two EDM bangers, and we're just going to kind of bring it up. So, Gage, get ready. We're going to bring it up in about 30 seconds, buddy. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions, please comment, leave them there, or try to bring them up for them to answer. Gage, you're right. You're coming up, buddy. And let's go. All right. I know that sounded kind of professional. It wasn't. It was just my iPhone and a speaker. That is what you get here behind the scenes on Energy Crew Podcast. Gage, how are you today?
That was a good walkout song. I hadn't had a chance to pick mine, so thanks for picking it for me.
Hey, buddy, trust me, I was so excited about this event. Like, I got up last night at 3 a.m. and I was thinking about it, and I went to bed at 5, and then you have that like break period, and you wake up at like 7. You're like, oh, I'm exhausted. So I needed that music to pump me up, and I thought no better way than to introduce Gage McCoy. For those that don't know, Gage, you've spent kind of the last several years around this emission identification and emissions technology, emissions of reduction, just the subject of emissions. And part of this kind of state of emissions is to kind of bring. You get some fan mail right now. The best dude around for methane model. See this? Okay, you know what? I don't even need to introduce you, Gage. You have a reputation for being the emissions guru, at least in this house you do. You know, as a fellow Crue Club member, as a fellow emissions, I guess, emissions advocate, trying to help operators out there with their emissions reductions technology. And again, talking to Ryan Walker, talking to Ryan Keys, this is still a confusing subject. You know, I think this is not something that you chew and digest in one sitting. So I love getting the DC aspect of it from Ryan Walker with Shumaker Advisors. I love hearing from Ryan Keys what he's doing on the operational side of things. And Gage, you're at the forefront of technology and this. So you're gonna talk us through this on what's happening, buddy. What are we talking about today? Like, obviously we're talking about emissions. Kind of, if you don't mind, kind of give us an intro and, like, I guess, kind of, you know, give a little background if you want, and also let's talk about kind of where we're at today as an industry and kind of what you're seeing out there, whether it's technology or the low-hanging fruit that operators and service companies can implement for something like this. So we got about 25 minutes, bro. Let's get into it. Let's dive in. And if everyone has any questions, please put it on the side, and we'll try to bring it in when we can. So thank you, Gage, for taking your time, buddy.
Yeah, no, thank you, JP. Ryan Keys is a tough act to follow. He's been a good advocate for this methane detection space. So the guy's a wealth of knowledge. He probably knows a lot more than I do. But yeah, just kind of been in this emission space for really since 2020. I was working for a major operator in the Permian, and kind of had a draw to dive back into a sales career, and spent some time shopping for a role in an energy technology space. And I found a home for a couple of years where I learned a lot about this space and kind of watched the emission space just kind of evolve from 2020, when price of oil went negative, and kind of the last thing on everybody's mind was emissions and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, to today, where we've got major value propositions to deploying this technology, where there is a net positive ROI to deploying these types of technologies. It's been quite the ride, and it's going to continue to evolve. It hasn't. I think we're just on the cusp of things right now.
So how has this journey been for you? Obviously, emissions is, again, as we stated earlier in the Energy Crew podcast, the #1 podcast in this house. Emissions previously was kind of a subject, something people knew was there. People knew was a forefront. And you've been in this for so long, is this one of those things that you've seen kind of the light at the tunnel, or you've seen the elephant in the room and you're trying to bring it up, and finally it's here? It's like, okay, let's talk about this. Or are you surprised too about the involvement, the exposure, the limelight that's been thrown on this so recently, and you're sitting there, it's like, this is what I've been saying. Like, where are you at in this kind of how it's evolved, the subject's evolved?
Yeah, no, we would never say I told you so. But I think there's, like you mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of low hanging fruit out there for companies as they kind of dive into this, right? The last couple of years I've seen, like Ryan Keys, I think he kind of built a emissions technology testing playground on his asset, where he had multiple technologies being tested. He's doing flyovers, doing continuous monitoring, different types of sensors. And the industry itself has really spent the last couple of years testing these technologies to try to understand what's on the market and how each technology kind of benefit their operation, bring value.
Right.
And like, ultimately there's not a, everybody says this, but like, there's no silver bullet, right? I think there's an application for flyovers. There's an application for satellites. There's an application for point sensors and latent LiDAR technologies. There's kind of a I've got an artificial lift background, so it's like, you've got rod pumps, you got gas lift, you got ESPs. So in the emission space, you've got all these different types of technologies.
So let me ask you a question when it comes to technology, because let's say I'm sitting here as an operator. All right. I'm kind of sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, well, there's so much technology out there, man. Like there's so much. Like people are promising this. They say that if they send this cup to me, this delicious Crue, executive mastermind program cup to me, it's going to cut this. So where is the real value when it comes to technology? What do I need to be listening out for when it comes to kind of these new technologies? Because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of offerings. There's a lot of promises when it comes to technology and software. But what actually are you seeing making the most impact to emissions reductions?
Yeah. Like
besides Qube Technologies.
But
time out. But I do want to hear about Qube Technology, what y'all do, because it's fascinating to me, buddy.
Yeah. So as unbiased of an answer as I can give you, it's and both Ryan's already mentioned it. It's risk mitigation from super emitter programs where the EDF is going to have certified vendors that are flying over your asset and putting a black eye on your operations. That's kind of that's the biggest value proposition to deploying these types of technologies. And past that super emitter program, in the Quad B rules and Quad C rules, there's opportunities for deploying alternative technologies, and from a continuous monitoring standpoint, traditionally people have just used an OGI camera. They go out and they perform a couple of inspections a year. Quad B kind of turns that into 4 times a year, and so you've essentially only had one lever to pull from a regulatory compliance perspective.
Okay.
is go out and do OGI inspections, and so now there's more levers to pull, in a sense that you can deploy an array of different technologies to meet this compliance reality. So but I at the same time, I think there's kind of a lot of fear and uncertainty, and like people are still trying to interpret the rule and understand how how it fits in with their operations, and what might make sense for a big operator might not make sense for an operator like Ryan.
So when you're obviously as a technology service provider, you're there to provide solutions. You're there to provide help. Okay. What's kind of one of the things that you wish, if you could just communicate, like, hey, look, like it doesn't matter if it's Qube, doesn't matter this, doesn't matter what you're using or what approach you're taking, you need to kind of hear why this is important, because we're staying on top of the subject, we're staying abreast of what's happening, and we're staying in the know. Like, I wish you could hear this, operators, right now on when it comes to your emissions. Like, what would be that kind of sentence or that theme you would like to kind of get across to the finish line?
Yeah, I'd say the technology itself doesn't reduce emissions.
Okay. This is great. This is great.
Yeah. So, the technologies tell you where your emissions are, and they tell you when you have an emission, right? So, from a continuous monitoring perspective, well, let's just say in general, right? The upstream space, they know that their emissions, they come from their tanks. They come from unlit flares, and they're not coming from pneumatics like Ryan was saying. But like at the end of the day, when Qube detects an emission, the operator has to put in the work to do preventative maintenance, to fix whatever's wrong within their process, to ultimately experience and achieve those reductions. So there is a level of just participation or involvement. Everything has to be ops driven.
I kind of feel like that's
has to happen.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's been kind of a theme of this discussion, from Ryan Walker, DC with Shumaker Advisors, to Ryan Keys, Triple Crime Research we just had on. And honestly, we're going to get that too when it comes to Mike Umbro, that this is one of those things where it's not just one person's job. There's not one task. There's not one silver bullet. This is probably encompasses a lot of people coming together at the table. A lot of companies coming sharing what works, what doesn't work. And not only that, kind of coming together as a collective. This isn't like, let's kick it down to Chris's office down in HSC or whatever's down to whatever. This is a conglomerate. This is everyone needs to be on board about this.
Yeah, these traditionally it's the environmental teams. They had this box to check from a quad OA perspective, traditionally is a hit to the bottom line, is a hit to the OpEx, and the script is starting to flip around where operations is going to have to drive these initiatives. Like I had lunch with a customer this week, and he talked about his he's incentivized. His annual bonus is about 30% of his annual bonus is based on achieving emission reductions and whatever their corporate targets are.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think is going to be pushing the discussion? Sorry. What do you think is going to be pushing the discussion? I guess when it comes to, like, as you just said, hey, look, this is kind of an era. This is going to be more operationally driven right now. Do you think it's going to be kind of like, number one, realizing the impact if you're not knowledgeable when it comes to emission reduction and methane emission reduction, or is it one of those things where you have to kind of tie performance? Because at the end of the day, either you're going to motivate people by being a fear of a hit of a fine or paying whatever a penalty, or be proactive and kind of do the right thing before the issue. What do you think is going to drive the conversation over? And then I want to talk about Qube Technologies and kind of what y'all are doing, some of the cool technologies out there before we wind up with the West Coast Sunrise Umbro.
So what was your question? What's going to drive the change?
Yeah, what do you think is going to drive the change where it's it's kind of being more of a discussion around the table, just like you had with it's like, hey, look, my bonus is tied to this, or do you think it's going to be more of kind of like a penalty, like, okay, well, look, we got to get serious now. We're kind of getting hit with this left and right. It's not just HSC anymore. Yeah.
Well, as everybody's diving into these rules and understanding and interpreting, how their processes are going to have to change to meet these, meet compliance requirements. It's it's going to affect everybody within the organization, and I think just everybody's just evaluating internally, how strategically they can most cost effectively, scale a larger LDAR program or a continuous monitoring program, and without breaking the bank.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into this. So why don't we talk about listen, you spent your career in emissions. You spent your career, the past couple of years around technology when it comes to emissions. You chose Qube, and Qube chose you. Why? No, I mean, listen, we just talked about this. There's a lot of this technology. Why Qube, and what does Qube have to offer? And why is this one of those, non-snake oil software or technology things that people are no fault of them. You're trying to make a living, but why is this actual solutions?
Yeah. Qube. Why Qube? Before I joined Qube, I would be talking to just people in the space, and 2021, the name Qube just kept popping up. I'm like, who are these Canadians, and why are they on my customer sites? And as it started to evolve, everything I hear about Qube was just, kept hearing good things about Qube, and so I dropped into the CEO's DMs on LinkedIn, and we met for coffee, anyways. And kind of hit it off from there. I think what I liked about Qube is that we're all energy people. So our leadership team, they spent time on the operator side in an engineering role, production operations engineering role, director of customer success. From a technical perspective, is just is just solid, right? So
Love it.
everybody on the team is we're all energy people, and we're trying to help solve an energy problem.
So talk to me how Qube can solve that problem real quick, because I want to talk about the technology, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So there's kind of an array of different types of solutions on the market, and I would say that utilizing a point sensor is probably one of the most economical means to deploy a continuous monitoring solution in the field. We are utilizing a metal oxide sensor. So we're relying on the wind to come to us. We'll strategically place, 4 or 5 sensors around a facility or compressor station. And we're continuously monitoring for methane. We can monitor for other gases as well. But we're collecting some concentration ppm data and some other environmental data. All that raw data is transmitted to the cloud through a cellular network.
All right.
Where we run it through the algorithms, and kind of the output is we can tell you where the leak is coming from with a reasonable degree of certainty, and then we're quantifying that leak in the output is like a kilograms per hour or MCF per day, or really kind of whatever measurement you'd like to see it in.
So once an operator kind of understands that where the leaks are coming from, where the emissions are coming from, and kind of quantifying all that stuff, is that kind of, you just provide them that report and kind of, hey, look, this is kind of, or is there any like a back thing, maybe a solution?
So there's a dashboard for the customers to log in. They can view that data live. It's streaming live. They can, if they have a sophisticated enough SCADA system, they can generate an API to bring that data into their own internal systems. Set alarm thresholds, right? So, if super emitter avoidance is your biggest concern, you can set your alarm threshold at 100 kilograms per hour. And, when you exceed that threshold, we'll let you know that you've got something you need to respond to.
All right. What else do you have for us for the best? And, hey, if anyone out there has any questions for Gage about emissions technology, what to do, low hanging fruit, what we need to know, whether it's an operator service side of things, please chime in. We're going to bring that up.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I would. I've said it a couple of times. You keep saying this low hanging fruit, and like what we see in the data, traditionally, it's really easy to kind of get. As I know, in the energy industry, engineers love diving into data and can get extremely too far into the weeds. But when you take a step back and you look at a continuous stream of data over maybe a 6-month time, you'll see that like 80% of your emissions come from about 20% of the actual events, right? So it's easy, like from a prescriptive workflow process analysis to there's low hanging fruit to go get, and the technology, the continuous stream of data can really point you in that right direction to, okay, where's our biggest bang for the buck, and going to that, kind of following that 80-20 rule can help you get there. Are
you finding with all this emission conversation, all this stuff, it's a lot easier to have some dialogue with interested parties?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, Qube's probably worked with over 80 different oil and gas operators since we've commercially been deploying our sensors. So we're competing, we're in the space, and we've had a lot of good conversations with operators and helping them understand the technology and kind of just walking alongside them and helping them solve this problem.
I dig it. All right. What else you got? What else you got for us? So we're coming up. We got about 6 minutes left on the Qube Gage side. What else you got for us, brother? Are you? So let me ask you a question. When it comes to kind of what Ryan's talking about, this new year, that in 2024 being the year when people are going to have to start kind of reporting because there's going to be actual consequences and all that stuff. I mean, how much is that is kind of driving the conversation, or is it not even known? Because it seems like there's so many different aspects. There's the federal level, there's the operational level, there's the technology level, there's the nonprofit level. So my thing is like, where do you seeing this all kind of fit together? Because it is a lot. It's a big piece. It's a big subject.
Yeah. No, I think everybody just, you got to eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so just kind of diving into the role and figuring out what makes the most sense for your organization. It's, I'd like to say that, like, hey, let's, metal oxide sensors, Qube Technologies is like the silver bullet, but that's in reality, that's just not the case. And we don't want to sell that. So,
and there is no silver bullet, as you said earlier.
Yeah. I think there's just, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for different technologies to find their niche within these operations. Like, flyovers just have a place, and continuous monitoring is going to have a place. And, OGI cameras aren't going anywhere. The OGI cameras aren't going anywhere either. So,
well, I dig it. So, hey, look, I think there's, as you said, it's no silver bullet. There's a lot of intel information out there. It's the elephant's big. The elephant's confusing. Where to cut it, how to take the first bite is, to me, it's difficult. Even when you're around these conversations around small, medium, larger operators, it seems like there's no real, in lack of a better term, everyone understands a little bit more about something than the other person next to them, so I think the act of communicating, number one, the act of reaching out and learning about these technologies kind of from an objective viewpoint, and kind of how that can help your operations and also reduce emissions, I think is probably key. Contacting Gage obviously is one of them. Okay, so we got a question here. Is Qube working towards a CCS solution as Class 6 wells become more prevalent? Good question, Mike. Thanks for tuning in. You got that?
Mike, why are you trying to stump me like that?
Yo, you're on the hot seat. This is energy.
Yeah,
this is Energy Group Podcast. Hey, don't worry. You're at the hot seat for 3 more minutes. So get are y'all?
I had plans to buy Mike Ogden a beer at 4C coming up in Austin, but since he stumped me on this question, he's probably gonna have to buy me a beer now. But Mike, I'll have to take that one offline. I honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
That's fine. We don't get anyone in trouble here, buddy. But hey, look, man, obviously it's always good catching up with you, man. I always appreciate kind of man, I mean, your insight, passion. You're in a space right now that's very confusing, but it's important. It's going to be driving the boat. It's going to be the wind in our sails, the wind beneath our wings, if we will. But I appreciate you taking the time this morning, hopping on and talking about something that you're obviously passionate about. You're trying to improve the industry. Mike says will do. So the beer is on him. You heard it here on Energy Crew Podcast, Mike. You're on that. But hey, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Safe travels when you get back there. If anyone has any questions, Gage, how can they contact you just to say, hey, look, I don't know what's happening here. Or, hey, look, can you provide me some form of just how can people contact you to learn more about what's happening?
Yeah, no, find me on LinkedIn. Pretty active. There on LinkedIn. Email is gage.mccoy@qubeiot.com. Qube. But like this space is still evolving. Qube is a nimble ship. We are easy to steer, and as this evolves, Qube's going to continue to evolve with the market. So at the end of the day, we just want to be the best at providing a continuous monitoring solution for the market and helping them solve the problem. So, appreciate you, JP.
Hey, buddy, I appreciate you, man. Safe travels back. Hopefully the hobby opens up, and I guess we will talk to you here in a little bit, buddy.
Yep.
All right. Next up out there, we have my brother from another mother, my West Coast partner in crime. We're here to tackle energy realities and fit them in and kind of bridge the gap between energy realities and energy expectations. I don't think he needs an introduction. That's Mike Umbro. You've seen him on the number 2 podcast. Actually, no, it's number 1 in the podcast. No, it's one. It's slightly below number 1 in this house besides Energy Crew. I got to say that, Mike. So I want to welcome out there, but first we're going to take about a 30-second break. Enjoy this, and we will be back.
I can't fit you. Either I'm with you or against you. I'm not against you. Do that makes I fit you. Talking to the rap inventor. Nigga with the game type hit that flame right. Got my name right. B.I. double G.I.E. I'm South, me and the Leon.
Going back to Cali. Mike, you there? Oh, Mike, you're muted. You're muted. I can't unmute you. Oh, 1 second. I love this. So anyway, for those that don't know, Mike is a fellow co-host on Energy Facts Chats. This is the screen that we have. Mike and I are very passionate about having conversations about the reality. I'm going to take them off. I'm going to take them off until you give me a thumbs up, Mike. No.
I'm good.
No. All right. Now he's back on stage. Mike, you're back on
good,
stage.
sorry.
So anyway,
I thought you were bringing me on in 4 minutes. Sorry, I was like telling someone I gotta go.
I guess I could, but man, I've been sitting in this chair for a while. I need someone else to talk. So
yeah,
Mike, I'm gonna give a little introduction, man, just so I could talk, so we can get our thoughts kind of organized. Again, this is obviously not thought out, but hey, for those that don't know, Mike Umbro and we got connected probably over a year ago on LinkedIn. I saw him doing actually longer than that. I think I saw you just kind of fed up. You're like, hey, look, I just kind of want to show the realities of what's happening. I mean, we're talking about not getting a permit. So you're out in, everyone that don't know, he's West Coast out in California. So he's someone that out there who wants to produce domestic energy. As an operator, and he's faced a lot of challenges getting permits, getting this, pretty much facing the whole rigmarole of the political landscape of California politics. And he started kind of putting together this great content about the realities of hey, we're saying we're going to shut down domestic production, but look at these tankers behind me. They're burning dirty diesel. It's messing up the dolphins. It's messing up the towns that are on the coast. It's polluting people's lungs. It's not domestic oil and gas production. It's the foreign oil and gas production that is actually hurting jobs, the environment, health, and the economy of California. So through the frustration, yes, you can bitch and moan for so long, but you can also do something. And through doing something, he led the charge for something called Californians for Energy and Science. And again, I can just show that banner right there. But California for Energy and Science is a nonprofit whose goal is to it kind of ties into our hit podcast called Energy Facts Chats, where you can only find on YouTube, where we come in, we bring up the energy headlines, what's happening in the realm of energy, and kind of talk the realities. California is going to be electrifying their ports. But what does that really mean for the small people that own their own rigs? What does that mean for the small people? What does that mean for charging times for these things, to get produce to your grocery stores? How is that going to affect the price of your California avocados? So we really kind of dive into what are these energy expectations to these policies, and what is the realities of it? What are the potential realities, and what does that really mean? And it's been such a fascinating journey for me, Mike. I want to say it's obviously been great knowing you and knowing your family. Obviously, our family, we adore, we love y'all, what y'all are doing out there, and I'm just honored to kind of be your friend and all that stuff. And I think it's great, two bros about energy, and
yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's great.
So Mike, I think look, we can have a structured emissions conversation.
Yeah, let's do it. Whatever you want to do, I'm game.
Okay, let me finish.
Let
me finish. I was literally in the middle of the transition thought, but I was going to suggest, why don't we kind of structure this as an Energy Facts Chats and kind of give a kind of preview on what is happening in California in emissions and what Californians for Energy and Science are doing to showcase kind of the realities of emissions, to showcase the realities of what your studies are kind of going out there and why it's important for people to know what's going on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about at emissions. Of course, I've been watching backstage here on what your past guests have talked about. And, I think in my mind, it's just I've been polishing my crystal ball and trying to tell people what's going to happen at the national level, and it's happening. So it's not surprising to anybody in California that's operated in the oil and gas space for any significant amount of time, what's happening at the national level and what the demands are. And I think the industry has been very slow to recognize its role in emissions. And what I mean by that is to be proactive about not only addressing emissions, but studying them and documenting them in a data-driven method. And that has typically been something that independent operators and small operators have, I don't want to use the term ignored, but have sat back and taken a backseat to
Passive.
allowing, major operators have an overwhelming influence on policy, on how projects are developed in a basin. And I think the independents are going to be awakened to the fact that regulatory controls and what's happening in our energy systems at a macro level absolutely favors the major operators. And in some cases, that's to the detriment of the environment and to local economies. So what we've done at Californians for Energy and Science, we've said, okay, well, certain agencies in California are telling the policymakers that there are X amount of emissions coming out of oil and gas drilling or production facilities. We said, let's check. Let's who's fact checking the fact checkers? And so
you gotta double fact check the fact checkers.
Yeah, and who is best to equipped to do that? Well, it's the people that own the wells. It's the people that are contracting with the drilling companies. It's the people that are doing the work. It's the people that have access to the lease. That's the operator. And tying it back to the large operators, well, they're not going to let you on their leases. They might know the data. Perfect example. Exxon getting raked through the coals on internal documents showing they knew climate change was happening, that there were anthropogenic human elements forcing certain reactions from the climate. And they hid that. And look what's happening now. It's biting them in the ass. So what we're saying is, well, we know that California banned routine flaring of natural gas in 1939.
Yep.
So when I talk about that in the Permian Basin, everybody, y'all better get your act together. They're going to shut your basin down. So that's kind of the state of emissions. We're studying what's happening in our basin, and I'm polishing my crystal ball and telling people throughout the country, get it together.
And the reason why this is so important, kind of why it's kind of perked up here, and Mike, I think it's so, through our conversations over the years, it's we always have this conversation. It's like, this is happening in California, but does anyone? People should care, but does anyone really care? And I think what's so interesting, my retort to that is 100%. What you see in California is kind of it's the fashion forward when it comes to silly policy, when it comes to unreliable policy. It's the trendy thing that happens that actually spreads and sticks. So it's the lower back tattoo that stays. So for example, California is saying, hey, 2035, we're gonna have all electric cars. Oh, keep that, California. That's your policy. Don't California my Texas, or don't California my Colorado. Well, what you're seeing now is you're seeing other states implement exactly what California is doing. You're seeing other states implement an environmental policy that's not based on realities, economics, or even environment economics, or even physics. You're seeing environmental policies based on feelings and narrative. So again, you've been saying, hey, Permian, like, you need to start kind of paying attention to what's happening out in California. Hey, other basins of domestic oil production, you need to kind of pay attention to what's happening out in California, because this is spreading. This is moving. This is contagious, and it continues to go. So no one's immune to this. And as you say, you joke around like Permian, like this, like, get it together. You are serious about that.
Absolutely. And I think there's too much within our industry. There's too much hubris from folks in Texas that you can't mess with Texas. Well, guess what? You're about to get messed with for the next decade until you get it together. And that's just a fact. And I think, harsh reality, everything's bigger in Texas except for the economy. The GDP of California is $3.2 trillion. Outside of the US government and 3 other countries, it's the biggest economy in the world.
We're not measuring GDPs.
Well,
buddy.
what I'm saying is Texas is 20 years behind in terms of the size of the economy. So it's a wake-up call that as California goes, so goes the entire country, and Texas be damned. And so that's the fact. And people don't like to hear that because don't mess with what I'm doing over here. California, you stick to your own
stay in your borders.
business. But when you look at what's happening in California, it's not all negative. If you look at back to an emissions and energy usage and efficiency conversation, California oil and gas consumption peaked. Oil consumption peaked in 1989. We consumed about 720 million barrels of oil in California back in 1989. Our population was about 29 million. What does that mean? We were using about 1,000 gallons of oil per person that year. Okay. Now, fast forward 40 years almost, we're consuming about 530 million barrels of oil in 2022. We have a population that's grown to 39 million people. And so what you have is 630 gallons of oil per person in 2022 and a $3.2 trillion economy. So California policymakers can accurately say we've grown the economy, we've increased the efficiency of oil consumption per person, and we've reduced emissions in these oil and gas fields. So there are certain elements of the policy that are absolutely working. And so if we look at just what hits the mainstream media and all of these talking points, we get lost in what's real and what statistically the data is showing. So there are greenhouse gas emissions have reduced to 1990 levels in California. Now it's come back up a little bit from kind of the pandemic closing up and getting back to normal. But again, policymakers can point to the fact that the Global Warming Solutions Act has brought emissions back down to 1990 levels. And they can say that honestly. So that's, and now you're seeing the methane rule that you've been talking to guests about at the national level.
I read something. Reading is a new thing in 2024 that we do in this house. I read something that's like the reduction in like the emissions or the consumption wasn't due to policy. It was due to technology efficiency when it comes to engines, cars, and all that stuff. So, I mean, politicians like taking the credit for the good stuff and not the blame for the bad stuff. So,
one comment on that. Why hasn't the industry taken the credit for it? Because they've stayed silent for 40 years. They haven't said machines are getting more efficient. We are getting more efficient. This is happening. Good things are happening. They've let the narrative go to whoever wants to control it.
And not only that, I'm kind of getting a soapbox right now about that. Like our industry, like whether you like it or not, like needs to start communicating, needs to start kind of doing goodwill communications and allowing people to step out into this social setting, limelight, to communicate to better, whether it's emissions, whether it's personnel, whether it's whatever, is to kind of, or what we do, the bettering of human lives, as Chris Wright with Liberty Energy says, it's what we do. Is we need to be more vocal about being advocates for this industry and not hiding behind this curtain of mystery and have someone else kind of tell our story and not share information that could help you out, that could help my neighbor out, that could help the country out, So like this archaic thing of like, oh, let's operate under this veil of shadow has to go away. So I completely, I don't know. I just look, obviously not everything, it is business. There are certain, but when things improve not just the image, but also the industry, when it comes to energy, that needs to be shared, that needs to be communicated and also highlighted.
Yeah, absolutely. And
tired of it not anyway.
Well, yeah, and the independents sit back and let Chevron and Exxon run these ads where people are in lab coats and this sterile environment.
Frames, houses.
No, show people what's happening in the fields. Explain to them what's happening in the fields. It's exactly what we're doing with our air monitoring studies. We're doing 24/7 air monitoring at production facilities. Oh, sorry. Am I jumping ahead?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know there was an outline here.
Well, there's not, but no, but that was a great outline. So we can talk about what kind of California energy and science, because I do want to talk about that. I love seeing kind of where it's gone from where it starts, where it's at today. And I want to hear about the actual things that y'all are doing, the real life stuff when it comes to the emissions monitoring and energy policy, and working with universities, what y'all are doing. And that way, at the end, we can take questions. We can bring back on Ryan and Gage, and kind of have whoever wants to have a question. So, man, if you don't mind, talk to me about kind of what brought California for Energy and Science together, what y'all are doing today, what stage you're at, and kind of the vision for it, and how people get involved.
Yeah, well, it started because permitting agencies are being shut down via lawsuits by environmental activists and folks that want to control. Where'd you go? There you are.
Hey,
go ahead.
Can you just keep talking for like 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Just go. Come on. I'm
Okay.
removing myself. You got it, bro.
Okay. Yeah,
I've been sitting here for 2 hours.
Okay.
Let me get up.
Got it. Okay. I thought things got haywire there. So we started Californians for Energy and Science because agencies were being shut down via lawsuits and other political forces, and permitting basically stopped. And it was stopped in the name of the environment, suggesting that emissions were happening that were harming disadvantaged communities. And this is still an argument going on today. So there's something called an environmental impact report for Kern County that outlines the processes to meet in California, the California Environmental Quality Act, to develop leases, to develop properties, or really develop anything, even outside of the energy space. So one of the arguments against the oil and gas industry was this false narrative that there are harmful pollutants and air emissions happening from idle wells, from new drilling, from production facilities. The way this was presented to the public was a number of methods. First, the California Air Resources Board has air monitoring devices set up along the 5 freeway. And what they do is they monitor emissions along the interstate highways, and they use modeling to infer if an oil field is 3 kilometers away, how close is that to the receptor? We can guess effectively how much the oil field contributes to the emissions showing up at a receptor. Well, that's a terrible methodology. It's not based in science, but the reports are kind of veiled in science. So we said, well, what better way to look at the emissions than to put 24/7 air monitoring devices on the lease? So we created virtual fence lines with these devices between communities and the lease production facilities. We put devices right next to production rigs as they move around the facilities. And now we're on one of the only wells being drilled in the entire state on all 4 corners of the pad with 24/7 air monitoring. So we'll issue a white paper. And what that white paper so far, the preliminary results are showing, is very few alarms or releases that we're finding. And in fact, you can look at what gas is detected. In this case, we're really only picking up carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide does not come out of an oil well. Carbon monoxide comes out of a tailpipe. And so what typically happens is this jives with why CARB is picking up emissions along the freeway. They're picking up diesel particulate. They're picking up other constituents in the atmosphere that happen to be emitted from heavy freight and vehicles traveling on the interstate. And this, when you actually look at the emissions data per California Air Resources Board, the upstream oil and gas production segment of the California economy accounts for less than 3% of the emissions in the state. Yet somehow, if we just shut down that 3%, everything will go away and get better. And so you really have to be proactive about looking at the data, about your methodology of how you collect the data, and actually doing the studies. You can't just talk about it and hope something happens. You have to do the work. So that's where we're at.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So pretty much You're saying, hey, look, you're saying this policy or this regulation is because you're saying this. Well, let's test that out. You're saying this, so let's test this out actually in reality, correct? That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. I know the answer, but for those that don't know, what are you doing? Okay, once you get this information, you start doing all the studies and all this stuff. What is the next phase? What is the next step in the process of this? And then,
putting it in the hands of the general public, not our community, not LinkedIn, not social media. We're going to be doing digital marketing campaigns, targeting communities that have been targeted by the activists with false narratives. So that's very easy to do in today's day and age. You just have to look at the demographics you want to send the material to and say, hey, look, Black and brown communities, you know what? It's not oil and gas production in the Los Angeles basin that's killing you. It's the Port of LA and Long Beach. The number one source of pollution in the South Coast region is actually what's hurting your lungs. And here's the data to show it. And it's a mix of data from the South Coast Air Quality Management District, California Air Resources Board, supporting what we're finding in the fields, which is when you put 24/7 monitoring on a good operation, you're not finding anything. And that's what the people need to see so that when they go to the gas pump and they wonder why their gasoline is so expensive, we can tell them, well, it's because you're paying for all these climate programs that are forcing every product and energy, liquid fuel to be imported into this state on cargo ships and tanker ships that have no controls on their emissions. So there you have it. And that's what the people don't know. And it's very obvious to those that study energy systems and study how products move in and out of a massive economy. And it's not dissimilar to what's happening in Europe with how they're trying to decouple from Russia and the natural gas. Where does it come from? Sources and uses. Spell it out for people. People are not stupid. They just need to know where to look for the information.
So one of the goals of Energy Facts Chats in California for Energy and Science is really just kind of like, hey, look, know what you're putting in your body. Where you're getting your body, whether it's state or electricity. I thought that was the most interesting thing. Like, know where your electricity is coming from. Know where your calorie intake is coming from. Is it coming from domestic, environmentally responsible fields, such as in the United States, or is it coming from foreign sources that do have a bigger impact to emissions, to the environment? Going back to the emissions, so I love what y'all are doing. My question is, before we kind of ask you kind of any final thoughts, and before we kind of open it up to questions, all this stuff, how can people get involved, and what should people kind of be listening to?
People in the industry that might
or
be
whoever. How do people get involved when it comes to kind of whether it's energy policy, what you're doing, kind of like, because here's the deal. I don't care if you're in Oklahoma. I don't care if people's energy prices are going up, right? Oh my God, we're on a different energy thing. But when it comes to California, because you're facing the emissions thing, which is a piece of it, of energy policy, how do people get involved in, I guess, learning what y'all are doing and to support?
Come out here. If you're an operator, come to California and see what people are doing on the operations side. We literally are working with operators that have 70,000 barcodes throughout their leases, and they go around once a week and scan every potential leak point, every valve, every knob, every stuffing box, everything in that field gets scanned once a week. And then they sniff and they look for the emissions, because what you're going to have in the Permian Basin is satellites and the EDF, as people have talked to, they're going to go up, and you don't need to look very far to find the flares. It's right in front of you. And they're going to say, you know what? The EPA needs to shut that down. The Railroad Commission will have nothing to do with it. The Railroad Commission, as we know, is fairly inept at protecting the environment. And so the federal government is going to come in and shut it down. And so what I think operators need to do is come to California and get a lesson. And that's a hard pill to swallow. You need to swallow some pride and say, hey, they've been dealing with it over in California. I want to know what the best practices are. Now, for the general public, what you can do is come on out to a lease. If you want to see what oil field operations look like, hit me up. Join us at energyandscience.com. If you put your information in there, It goes directly to me. We don't spam you with anything.
No, you don't.
But put a note in there. I want to see an oil field. I'll take you. And that's what the operators need to do as well, is say, hey, if this is good for the economy, if we need to export more LNG, take people to an LNG terminal, take people to natural gas production facilities, take people to these sites and show them why and prove to them why it's better for the environment and the economy. That's what people need to do. And
the thing is, though, it's a necessity. It's a necessity too. You know, it's not like all these domestic energy. It's a necessity. So
yeah, and sadly, what it takes is your permits to stop happen. You're not going to get your permits, and then operators will react. It's too late. It's too late to do that. Your industry will take billions of dollars of haircuts in that, as has happened in California, because California operators, although we comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, we don't have flaring. We have very clean operations. They sat behind and let the big companies control the narrative. I'll let them do the work in Sacramento. They're going to do it for you. Guess what? They don't care. The big companies don't care. Why is LNG being shut down? Because big operators will produce it in Mozambique and Oman and all these other countries and make more money doing it there. And they don't care that the Biden administration shut down LNG permitting. So we need to all wake up to the fact that the big companies are not doing you any favors, and you need to put on your big boy pants and do it yourself.
But you care because this industry is not just the big, it's the smaller, it's the independents, it's the families that are kind of trying to produce U.S. energy. So
absolutely. Look at the history of oil and gas in the United States. It's all developed, and all the cutting edge technology is independence, right?
Yeah.
Who kicked off the shale boom? You know, arguably we've been fracking and directional drilling for many, many decades.
It was the technology.
Yeah. And it happened in the Barnett Shale by a little guy named George Mitchell, not Chevron.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So all of and the operators I'm talking about that have 70,000 parts barcoded, that are sniffing on a weekly basis, that have zero emission facilities, it's not a big operator. It's a little guy. And so the independents are leading the technology in a lot of these basins in a lot of different applications. And those are the companies that need to be highlighted, and they don't know how to do it. They don't have big PR companies. And that's where we came in as Californians for Energy and Science and said, let us give you a voice and let's try to tell this story the right way with the data.
Love it. Hey, Mike, we're about to open this up to some Q&A. Does that work for you? Do you have any thing for so everyone?
Yeah, it works.
Mike Umbro, please get involved. Head over to www.energyandscience.com. Find out what they're doing. Good group of people. Plus, it's kind of cool meeting different people throughout the oil and gas industry from different parts of the country. I think that's always fun. Even different parts of the world. I think that was kind of a cool thing that I had in Noble Drilling. You just meet people all over the globe, very diverse backgrounds, but we have more similarities and differences. So it's great to don't California my Texas is probably more similarities. So obviously reach out, say hello. So Mike, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to bring everyone up. We got Gage, Ryan Walker, and you coming back on. So Gage, Ryan Walker, if you can hear me, unmute, get ready to hop on. Hey, y'all, I'm having a lot of fun, a lot of information. It's kind of getting saturated, which is fine. But hey, this is for you out there to learn about what is happening in the mission state, whether it's the environment, whether it's kind of the federal level, the nonprofit level, the technology level. Ryan Keys had to drop off. So we're going to bring everyone back up here. If anyone has any questions, if not, I just want to kind of thank everyone out there. And again, this special Energy Crew live stream has been brought to you by the following. It's been brought to you by Shumaker Advisors, Qube Technologies, Californians for Energy and Science, Exec Crew, and Crew Club. What's the difference between Exec Crew and Crew Club, you say? Well, that's easy. Exec Crew is for executives and achievers, leaders, and founders. It's an executive development program that focuses on a holistic leadership approach. The Crew Club events are operator, producer, focus, network events. Always great industry insights, great connections. Our industry and our world needs more friends, and that's what this is about, but also sharing knowledge. So we're going to bring everyone up on the screen right now. If you have any questions, please chime in, put your questions in the comments, and I'm going to try to put it in there. And if not, we thank you, everyone, for tuning in. and let's kind of get this going. So we're bringing back Gage. Boom. Gage, welcome back. Ryan, boom, welcome back. And Umbro, welcome back. All right. So, everyone, thank you for sticking around on a Friday this long. How's everyone doing?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
We're all good?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, hey, listen, how about let's do kind of a quick 5-minute wind down, okay? Before that way we allow people to chime in with questions in case there's a delay and all that stuff. So when it comes to kind of tying in from the federal level in DC, Ryan, to the West Coast side of things, the nonprofit, Mike, and also with Gage when it comes to technology, what are some kind of common themes that kind of, as an operator or as an industry, that people should probably, what you're kind of getting from all these different conversations, what are some common themes that you're seeing that I guess the audience out there should probably kind of hone in on? I'll start. I'll start. I think a common thing is, number one, that there is a lot happening. It's a big, as Ryan says, it's very sticky. However, I think sharing knowledge, trying to dive into it, whether it's again, this goes back to the whole value-added activity, whether it's your scope, whether it's your discipline or focus, understanding what is happening in the emission state from a federal level to the state level to the technology level will probably help propel you to be better prepared for what's not coming, what's here today. All right, handing it over to Mike. Gage.
I'll say so. I think one thing that for me, I think the industry needs to find a way to get on the same page and come together. I think the forces against the industry, the eco-terrorists, environmental activists that just don't want any development, are very well organized and they're well funded, and they work together to shut us down. And the industry typically is we're very competitive with one another. We don't share data. We don't share best practices if we don't have to. And that works against us when we're collectively trying to move domestic energy forward. So that's kind of my quick.
Dig it, 100%.
Look, from where I sit in, and from the DC position, look, Ryan Keyes was talking about, having the big guys, the Exxons, the Chevrons, who have the government affairs and the regulatory people to kind of work the system for them. But small operators, medium-sized operators have the same ability to do that, whether they're engaging with folks like myself or my firm, or whether through their trade associations. But it's important because, look, you're about to see up until about May or June of this year, a regulatory onslaught. Because they have to get the administration has to get certain regulations out the door, so that if the White House would flip, that a new administration couldn't subject any regulations to the Congressional Review Act, which allows Congress to overturn those. And the look back on that is about 60 legislative days. So you're about to see, whether it's from the methane rule and everything else, just a tidal wave of regulations.
That sounds so fun.
I mean, I hate to be like the kind of blanket on all this, but it's reality.
Dude, all this stuff, this isn't a wet blanket. All this stuff's reality. So, like, whether it sounds fun or not, whether it sounds sexy or entertaining or engaging, it's still reality. Like, this is the stuff that we're going to have to deal with as an industry, as providing energy to the world.
Yeah. So, Ryan, I feel like Ryan kind of teed the technology conversation up really well. I think there's a lot of solutions that are coming to the market to help operators solve this problem. I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of consulting groups and like OTA Environmental was on here earlier. There's a wealth of technology and everybody's out here trying to solve the problem and kind of fight back and help keep the oil in the pipe, the gas in the pipe, and keep everybody moving. So I think from a technology perspective, it's all about risk exposure and risk mitigation, understanding that risk and how you're going to manage it kind of moving forward and then into compliance is a thing too. So that's all I got.
I dig it. Hey, if anyone else has anything, I just want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. I want to thank Ryan, Mike, Gage for coming in and just being a part of this state of emissions. This is something that, again, I wouldn't wake up on a Friday and be like, I want to go learn about emissions or talk about emissions. But however, this is kind of important as part of an industry. This is something that we do need to start talking about, even if it's not your focal point or your discipline. This is something that we have to share, unite, get on all the same front. If not, other people are going to be dictating how we do work. And I know that's something that from my contacts out there that we like handling our own business and working at our own pace. So again, thank y'all out there. Ryan Walker with Shumaker Advisors up in D.C. Contact him if you kind of want to learn more about what it's like on the life fighting for the energy policy on the federal level. Gage McCoy talking to the emissions technology at the forefront of what's going on when it comes to technology, monitoring emissions reductions. Thank you, Gage. Mike Umbro, keep doing what you're doing, fighting the good fight. Obviously, we want to show you support from the East Coast to the Third Coast to the West Coast about promoting Californians for energy and science. What you're doing out there. We need to do another bro trip, which is business-related oil field trip out there coming up soon with the families. Ryan, I got to get up to D.C. as well. Ryan Keys, I got to get down to Mexico then, man, see what's happening down there. But, hey, I want to thank everyone for tuning in for this Energy Crue podcast. And, y'all, it's been such a fun time. I want to thank y'all. Please, if you enjoy this, subscribe, follow it on YouTube. This is it's a passion project. And if you're looking to kind of get a little exposure, we are accepting some sponsorships. But anyway, y'all, I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in, and everyone have a great week. And let's start talking to each other.